Okay, so I have Mike dialed up on the computer here, and you might remember Mike. We talked to him last year. I met him in October last year when I was on a trip to Colorado, and Michelle Kempema took us to Wyoming to meet Mike, and we did a couple of videos, one about the Big Boy 4004 in Holiday Park, and one about the projects that Mike works on out at the silo that he has out there in Wyoming, east of Cheyenne. So, Mike, welcome back. It's great to see you again. What do you have for us today?
Hello, how are you? It's good to see you.
Yeah, doing great.
So, today I wanted to just illustrate some of the interesting things we found on this caboose that's behind me. You may remember from the last video you did that we said that it was an 1880 Union Pacific caboose.
Right, that was the oldest Union Pacific caboose known to exist at the time, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah, that's correct. So since then, a few things have happened that have meant that it's gone back even further than we imagined. And in fact, it may well be the oldest piece of Union Pacific equipment anywhere in the USA.
Oh, wow.
So it makes it quite, it was special already, but it makes it more special even than it was before from our point of view. So I'd just like to take you through some of the reasons why we think that's the case, and what we base our assumptions on our evidence on.
Okay.
To prove that we think it's now 1870.
Oh, so that's even 10 years older.
Yes, yeah, we believe so. So in the records, there's a very good Union Pacific book on cabooses written by Jim Ehrenberger. And it's incredibly detailed as far as reports and histories of cabooses is concerned. But there are some gaps, and the gaps obviously really are with the very earliest cabooses because there is nothing very much known about them. There's no plans, there's no drawings, no specifications, nothing really is known about how they came about and who built them and how long they lasted for. So that makes this caboose really interesting because we know that the earliest UP cabooses had octagonal 8-sided cupolas,
right,
like a lighthouse in the middle of the roof. And we also know that they had arched side windows, at least 6 of them. Some of them had 8 windows per side. And that they also had horizontal siding instead of vertical siding. So they looked a lot different. So what happened was once we got this caboose, which we found in Boulder, Colorado, on a ranch, we knew the number on the caboose was 2095 because it had that clearly displayed still above the doors. And 2095, according to the records, was built in 1880, but it also had a conversion date of 1885, which was curious. Because there's no reason for a caboose to be converted after 5 years. That seemed somewhat strange. So I'll just give you an illustration of what we found on the caboose. So as we started pulling the siding off on this one, you can see this condition it's in is pretty awful. There's very little side support left, and the top sills are gone. The roof is bowed in due to snow load down in Colorado that's broken some of the roof bows. We've replaced some of the frame already that was rotted out completely as well. So I'll just illustrate with this amazing pointy stick. So we had windows here in this spot. The light doesn't help, I'm afraid, but we had windows here. We had a window right here as well. And then down the other end, there was a single window, which I'll illustrate, which is still there, obviously, where the bathroom is, and the wash basin.
That's how you found it, right?
So that's how we found it. Basically, a 3-window or 4-window CA or non-common standard caboose, they called them, because they were the batch built before the CA came on the scene, if you like. So they were a non-common standard caboose. They had a narrow cupola on top with a walkway around the outside of it, which again was, made them look different. And that was before the kind of wide vision CA Caboose cupola came in. So we knew we had a very old Caboose. We knew it was 1880. But as we started pulling the siding off, it became apparent that this is also a window space. And the reason we say that is, if you can see up here, there's some screws in a piece of wood, and there as well, and that is a window brace to stop the window falling out when you lift a window up.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then down the bottom right here, you can see it. Can you see the slot in the wood?
Yes, sir. That is definitely a slot.
Yes, exactly. That's a slot for a windowsill. So that made us begin to realize that we had a Caboose with potentially 6 windows. So one here, another one right here, another one here, which I put a temporary arch window in just for fun. So that got us realizing that we were working on a Caboose that was way older than 1880. The other thing we found out from the records was that its previous number before 2095 was 1150. And the 1100 series Cabooses were octagonal cupola Cabooses. So the actual build date of 1880, we believe, is a rebuild date, when it received the new cupola and a new interior, new siding, and just completely new interior and exterior arrangements. So they were
probably modernizing it at the time, huh?
Yeah, and I think the reason is probably because with all those windows in the sides and the little tiny cupola in the middle, there's only room for one seat in that cupola. You'd have had to walk round the outside of all the cupboards and the lockers, because there would have been no room for cupboards on the outside of the Caboose, on the outside of the interior, if you see what I mean.
Right.
So they modernized them, and they were probably also, with all those windows in, they were very, very fragile as well. And because Cabooses generally got a beating, they obviously wanted to beef them up and make them more practical. So a lot of the bracing you see, like these, were added later as well. We don't believe that this cross brace was actually even in here when it was built. So there's a lot of inconsistencies in the construction of it. So here's a photo of 1112, and this is exactly what this Caboose would have looked like as built. So you can see the horizontal siding just about, and you can see the octagonal cupola and the arched windows.
Yeah, I can see that. I like how they have Waycar painted on the outside, just in case you can't tell. Yeah,
that's right. Just in case you didn't know that the bright yellow car at the end was something different. Yeah, and of course at that time they were bright yellow. UP went to red Cabooses in about 1902, so they went from yellow to red and then back to yellow on these things, which is also interesting. And it was a slightly different yellow to the current UP yellow. It was a much more golden yellow, and we believe it had dark red window trim, and the trucks were a dark red as well. So quite a few differences. So that's what we base our beliefs on, that we now actually have an 1870 Caboose, which is truly incredible and something that no one's ever seen before.
Yes, and unexpected.
That's right, really unexpected, and we're really happy that we chose the Caboose we did from the ranch when it was offered to us, because we had something really special. So that's the story of the Caboose. It's going to be a long-term restoration, but at the same time, it's an incredibly important restoration. It's going to have things like trucks specially built, because even wooden trucks from that era just don't exist.
Right.
They're a much shorter wheelbase and a different truck altogether. So it's a long-term thing, but it's an incredibly special thing. And I like to think perhaps that at some time maybe this Caboose could go to the Golden Spike and be behind one of those locomotives there.
Oh, that could be really cool.
Incredibly close to the age of the Golden Spike, isn't it? So
yeah, what I find really remarkable about this particular piece of equipment is not only is it the oldest one in existence, but it's also a one of a kind, because I don't think I've heard of any cabooses even in existence that are that old. So
it's very, 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 very early. Yeah. So it's unlikely you'll find anything. And obviously being in Colorado and this Wyoming area, it helps preserve things like this where nowhere else would.
Yeah, it's much drier there, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're really excited about it. It's much more archaeology than it is restoration, because of the fact there really are no drawings. There's no internal arrangements for these. So as we pull stuff out from the inside, we're trying to look at floor patterns and shadows on the floor to see if it gives us any kind of clue as to how the arrangements were inside.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's an exciting one, and I'm looking forward to jumping back on it whenever I get the time to do so.
Yeah, that's really great. So, also, when we were at the silo last time, you showed us a great streetcar, like a trolley or something. You've been working on that too, right?
That's right. Yeah, we've been working on Denver 0.04, which is a 1908 Woba trolley car, and it's actually the last Denver trolley car to operate in Denver in 1950.
Very good.
So it's coming on well. It's been a year now that we've been working on it. We've run into many, many issues that we didn't expect to find, which is just par for the course when you're dealing with wooden and steel rolling stock. You just you just expect the worst, and then anything else is good, So,
well, one of the things I know from talking to really a number of people who do or have done restoration is the more stuff you take apart, the more stuff you find wrong with it too. So it turns into a much bigger project than you ever dreamed it could be. And it sounds like that's right. It sounds like that's what's going on with this one too.
Yeah, it is. And fortunately, we're working with the city of Arvada. It's a project that they're funding, partially funding, along with their historic preservation grants as well. And it's been really nice because they're really, really good to work with, and they've been supportive of everything we've told them and asked them and everything else. So they're well aware of what we're up against. But they're absolutely committed to seeing this trolley finished and on display, and it's even going to have its own building in the park down in Denver. So
that's awesome.
It means a lot to them. It's going to be a really, really nice display piece when it's finished. So at the moment, we're putting sheet metal back on. We tried to, as with all historic projects, we tried to reuse absolutely everything that can possibly be reused. So you can see on the front of the trolley that there's a panel there with the number on it, the original number. We uncovered those under the paint, and we've managed to save 6 of the 8 panels with the original numbers on. So although they'll require work, it's really important to me that things like that get saved, because it is the whole identity of the trolley right there.
Right. That's what preservation or historic restoration is about, is saving as much of the original as possible,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. And Arvada are of the opinion that this trolley should look like it did when it finished service in 1950. So they're not looking for, mirror finishes on the sheet metal. They're looking for the dings and the dents and the weather-worn appearance that it had when it finished in 1950, and that's what we've been trying to achieve as well. So probably 85% of the sheet metal is original, and going to be reused, and then I would say maybe 70%, 75% of the wood inside is going to be completely original too, and just refurbished and repaired. So we're pleased with it. It's coming on really well. We've had some issues with the wood on the roof. I'll show you some of those things. You can see we've got windows going in now, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
And there's another number as well.
0.04. I don't remember if we talked about that, but is there a story behind that? Sounds like there should be a story behind that. Like, why isn't it just 4 or 04? Why is it?
I believe it was to denote the fact that these were actually interurbans. So all their other trolleys were numbered in sort of a 300 series, and just 3 numbers. So I think these were done to denote the fact they were interurbans, because this ran from Arvada to Golden out in the country. So I believe that was the case. I may be wrong. Its original number was number 11, and then it had a second number, I believe, before it was refurbished and became 04. So the interior is going back in. There's some of the paneling, that's original paneling, that's been restored.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You can see.
Yeah.
Which is going back, and then the roof is gradually going back on. All the roofing material has had to be replaced, and most of the bows have had to be cut and reprofiled because of snow load. It was used as a cabin up in the mountains for years, and the roof got crushed by snow, so we've had to reprofile a lot of those as well. There's lots of new flooring gone in. We've saved as much of the original as we can. The floor is fir and maple, which is interesting. And then the rear end of the trolley, which you can see up there, has been entirely rebuilt because there was really very little left of it. So it's coming along pretty well. I'll show you one interesting piece we found underneath another piece of wood. Is the only reference to its original number that we found on the entire trolley.
Oh, look at this.
So that is the absolutely original 1908 number, which we found underneath another piece of wood. So that's going to be saved and then be framed and go on a display panel inside the trolley so that people can see it. Yeah,
that's a lucky find, huh?
It is a very lucky find. We've not found anything else at all. So there's going to be some electrical put into it so that when it's in the park, it will actually be able to be lit up at night inside so that you can see how the lighting was arranged, and it'll just bring some light to the interior. I'll show you around this side. See, there's another number.
Yeah.
At the moment, it still has the Caboose trucks that it came in on, which you can see just about there.
Oh, yes.
They're CB&Q Caboose trucks, wooden ones, but we are hoping that eventually we will build correct trucks for it, and it will go back on correct streetcar trucks, which will make it look better, obviously, for the purists, and make it sit better as well.
Yeah, this is really cool. You know, it's funny. I think about, model railroading has a lot of facets to it. You have woodworking and design and electronics and all these things that makes model railroading really great for kids. What you do there, I mean, you have to be a woodworker, you have to be a welder, you have to be an electrician, I mean, a painter. It's remarkable how many different things you need to be able to do, because when these things were built, they were presumably built in a factory by a number of different people who specialized in each thing that they did.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? You're one guy or a small team of people having to do basically the same things that they did when they built them, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have to. There's certain things with the electrical, we have to call in an electrician because it has to be to code. But everything else, we have to do in-house ourselves. So you have to be a bit. You have to have some knowledge of a bit of everything, really, to be able to do it. This one, we've had to add a lot of structural steel to the underneath because it's had several serious accidents in its life. So on one side of the body, the frame was pushed in by 2 inches where it had been hit by something. And then at the front of the trolley, it has a new section of frame in there where it had been hit by a vehicle in Denver, we understand. So... and both ends of the trolley were drooping just because of the way it's built, really.
Yeah.
And the age of it. So we've had to add some structural steel in there to try to help it to stay as straight as it possibly can. This one was unusual in that it was sold off as a cabin, but it kept its truss rods underneath. And obviously I'll show you those. Obviously that helped it to stay straighter than it would normally have done. So this is the center doorway, and you can, I think you can see the truss rod right here.
Yeah, there it is.
Running through. So this one actually maintained them. Normally when they sold these off as cabins, they got rid of the truss rods because they were in the way of loading them onto trucks and stuff like that.
Right.
So this one has that advantage. to it. But so that's the update on the trolley. Really, it's going to have replica equipment inside. We've managed to find a guy down in Colorado that has 33 original Denver trolley car seats. So we're buying those because when the trolley arrived here, it only had 11 seats in it. So it's going to go back with a completely full complement of original seats, which is really important, and that's going to look really good. So
yeah. That'll give people a much better idea of how it looked when it was in service, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it saves a lot of money too, because finding the material to make rattan seats is really, really difficult, and they'd have to come from overseas. So that's good. So that's the update on the trolley, really.
Excellent.
As far as it is at this point.
You know, I had plans to come back. I know you know this, but I'm going to tell the viewers. We had plans to come back out. I think it was in April this year.
That's right.
We would have done this in person, but, you know, COVID and, you know, we had a wrench thrown into our plans, unfortunately. So I'm really glad that you were able to get internet out there and able to do this, because these are projects that I was really fascinated by when you showed us the first time we came out there. Is there anything else in the works that you can hint at? That, I mean, I know usually people are pretty secretive about some stuff, but do you have anything that maybe we can tease people with, that maybe we'll do another update?
We have, there's a couple of things we have coming in, both of which we didn't really anticipate. We have a boxcar from 1887, which we found about 50 miles north of here. And it was purely a fluke phone call from a lady who had the boxcar to the UP Historical Society and then to me. We went to identify the boxcar, and it turned out that, unbelievably, it's actually an 1887 Colorado and Southern boxcar, but originally built by Pullman in their factory along with car 57, which is there behind me.
Right.
And it was actually built at the same year in the same factory for the same order for the Denver, Texas and Fort Worth Railroad. So that boxcar actually operated in the same trains as this Pullman car.
Wow, that's cool. What are the chances,
that's really,
you know?
Highly, highly unusual.
Yeah, I think about that. Like, what are the chances of that? Like 1 in a million, probably, you know?
And both of them being found in Wyoming.
Yeah.
So we're going to get that boxcar because, from my point of view, that history is just incredible. So we have that one coming in probably next month, and that'll just be stored here until we can get round to it. And then we also have on Facebook Marketplace, somebody advertised half of a passenger car for sale. And when I mean half, I mean it was sawn in half. But it was a wooden passenger car, and I went up to look at it. That was up in Orange Junction, so we thought it was probably likely to be CB&Q or CNW, Chicago Northwestern. So we went to look at that, and it turned out that it's half of an 1882 Chicago Northwestern passenger car built by Ohio Falls Car Company back in Indiana.
Okay.
So we talked about it, and it wasn't something that, you know, I was really wanting to spend money on picking up. But the owner then said he would deliver it for free.
Oh, nice.
So we have that coming in too, and it still has its original mahogany and maple interior, although it's been painted. And we believe it's only the second example of an Ohio Falls passenger car in existence. So we kind of get that one by default, but it's nice to have because it's so rare. So
yeah, it's half the car it used to be.
That's right. That's right. It is. So it's going to be a great example of somebody else's work.
Yeah.
You know, some other builder's quality and works.
Sure.
It'll arrive here eventually.
Now, I remember that one because I saw photos of that on Facebook, and we should mention that because you have a Facebook page for your own business of restoration, and you also have GoFundMe set up for a lot of these things. I think we should make sure that people know, if they're interested, how they can help you with the work, because this is important work.
The boxcar has a GoFundMe set up for it, and the passenger car as well. So all of these things take time and money. We have to, even if we're being given them for free, you know, the famous free word comes up, and it's like, yes, that's wonderful, it's free, but how do we physically load it, get it here, offload it, you know, and everything else? Cranes aren't free, and transportation isn't free. So we're always looking for help with that. We're just lucky that sometimes people offer us stuff for free and deliver it too, which is very nice. But then there's still the cost of restoration and everything else. So there's always a need for funds, whether it be, you know, some people send $10, which is wonderful. We really appreciate it. And some send $500, which is nice too. So whatever people can afford in these difficult times is really, really appreciated and goes directly to the project that they want it to go to. So
what's the easiest way for people to find that? Would it be to find you on Facebook or?
Facebook is really the easiest, yeah, to be honest.
Okay.
And our most updates are on there, and we're on there under High Plains Railroad Preservation.
High Plains Railroad Preservation.
Yeah, and then each car has its own page as well. So there's a page for Car 57 and a page for the Caboose. There's a page for the trolley, just to keep things in separate categories, really.
Excellent. Well, hey, I want to thank you. This has been really cool. I really wish we could have got out there in person, but like I said, you know, things happen. And
that's right. Yeah.
Hopefully once this virus thing subsides and we are able to travel safely again, we'll get out and do a better in-person visit and hopefully see some more of this stuff, maybe even see some of it close to completion.
Yeah, that's right. Let's hope so.
Cool.
I really hope to get something completed. The trolley is going to be stored here for a while, I think, so that will be stored here complete. And then I can get on with other things in the meantime. So yeah, please do that. And we welcome visitors as well. Anybody who's in the area, if they can contact us via Facebook, we always like to show people around and show people what we're doing.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for taking the time, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And hopefully
thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Bye.